Tar Heel faithful came to celebrate, and celebrate they did. The party is still going strong. Next stop, the Dean Smith Center for the Tar Heel homecoming to celebrate the next championship banner that will soon hang in the rafters.
The Carolina Tar Heels set out to do what they did last night. They won a national championship.
And today they bring that title and the trophy home to the Carolina faithful. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. I'm David Crabtree.
And I'm Deborah Morgan. The team is in the air right now, but it won't be long before a hero's welcome is waiting for them when they land. We have team coverage of the Tar Heels homecoming. Julia Sims is watching for our first glimpse of the plane at RDU. Adam Owens is with the crowd starting to move into the Dean Smith Center.
Catherine Brown and Ken Smith are already inside, and they began our team coverage. Catherine, Ken?
Well, there's so many fans anxiously waiting outside. I just checked the doors. They are, oh, here they come.
They're pouring in.
Take a look just behind us here. I don't know if you can see them. Just beginning to come down the stairs.
He's going to show you. There you go.
Open the doors, but they are running in. This is an exciting crowd, an exciting moment to be here, and something they've been waiting a year for, this redemption tour.
That's all they've been talking about all this time. And, you know, as they pour in tonight, I want to take you back to last night and just how excited this Smith Center was. More than 9,000 people packed this area last night just to watch this big game, watch that championship game. And of course, when that buzzer sounded, I mean, they poured onto the center court and just started jumping around with absolute excitement. But after they finished here, they headed right to Franklin Street.
Yeah, you know it. And they poured into the streets. This is a long-standing tradition on Franklin Street. This is a time lapse right now that you're seeing of Franklin Street just filling up with all those fans. There were bonfires. There was a lot of fun. It was mostly peaceful, just a huge celebratory moment. You can see it there on that video. There come the crowds now as the big win was finalized, clinched, the trophy coming home.
And probably they did not get much sleep because a lot of those fans who were out there last night were in line outside the Smith Center today.
Yeah, among them are Adam Owens. He's out there. I imagine if he's not trampled by now.
Ken, Catherine, we're coming for you guys now. We've had to wait outside too long. Now we're getting inside the Dean Smith Center. I've done what I can to check for valuables, get all those valuables as they come in, but no one's going for that. But look at this line. Look at them making their way down into the Dean Smith Center. They have been waiting for quite some time, as I just mentioned, hours to get inside the center here. And finally, the security at the door said, you can go in. It's time to have a good time. It's time to party, and these people are ready for a party as well. As you know, they were so excited about last night's win. They're so proud of their Tar Heel basketball team, and this will be their opportunity to say thank you in a very, very big way. I expect it to get very loud inside the Dean Smith Center, where we will all be very shortly. Back to you.
Well, the music is pumping, and now we can start to hear the crowds. Adam Owens, thanks. And we have a look now at the crowds filling up, and you can see just how many people are already in the stands. The doors opened less than 5 minutes ago. Was it 4 or 5 minutes ago? And they are just already beginning to pack the floor. You can imagine this will be a fully packed arena.
And, you know, a lot of people who are in this arena tonight, they're wearing some brand new UNC championship gear. And take a look at why that is possible, because of a local company, I'll tell you that much. They were printing their presses last night at 11:30. This TRT Classics in Hillsborough fired up their silkscreen operations at 11:30 last night, right about the time that last buzzer sounded. Their second location in Wendell did the same. The company delivered thousands of shirts by the time stores opened today.
And as you can imagine, plenty of people wanted those T-shirts fresh off the presses. Coming up at 5:30. We'll introduce you to a few people who bought them the very first moment that they were available.
You know, one store told us today they expected to sell 10,000 UNC championship T-shirts just today alone.
Looking out at this crowd, I do not doubt it. I don't doubt it a bit.
Yeah, of course, the celebration can't get started here unless the aircraft lands at RDU.
Yeah, we have Julia Sims live at RDU keeping tabs on that. And Julia, it's that's where all the excitement is going to start.
That's right. And Catherine, you know, they think that the team should be arriving within the next hour. They left Phoenix about 2.5 hours ago on a charter flight. once they arrive here, we're told it's going to be a very quick pit stop. It sounds like RDU has this very well choreographed. They've done this a lot of times before. They said once they get off, once that plane lands, they will have, it'll probably just be about 20 minutes before they get all the players and all the, whether it be cheerleaders and university leaders off that plane and onto 4 buses. The Highway Patrol will then escort them over to the Smith Center. They have got to be physically tired, but coming home, winning this championship title, and then headed to the Smith Center to get a hero's welcome, well, they've got to be floating on air for the next couple of days or so. Catherine?
Floating on air. That was a good one from the airport, Julie. I like it.
That's very good. She's such a wordsmith, that Julia Sims. Boy, I tell you what, you can feel the excitement building in here. The minute the doors opened a few minutes ago, you saw right here, fans just came pouring in.
Yeah, and this is one of the posters that a lot of them are carrying. This is one of these NCAA championship posters, 2017 national champions, and you can see all the years there. But lots of memorabilia, lots of things, and plenty there will be to purchase here at the Smith Center as well tonight.
And we said the last time UNC won the national championship was back in 2009. They won it in Detroit, actually. They beat Michigan State. And unlike last night's game, that game back in 2009, they ran away with that game. That game was never in doubt. There was the Tyler Hansbrough, Danny Green, Tyler Lawson team. There was never in doubt. But last night here in the Smith Center, I mean, it was so tense in here. People actually had to leave their seats because it really went down to the absolute wire.
Yeah, such an exciting game and another exciting night tonight. Ken and I will be here through the night, and we'll be bringing you this celebration live as it unfolds here on WRAL.
Yeah. And stay with us, because after the 6 o'clock news, we'll bring you live coverage of the Tar Heels homecoming right here.
All right, very good, Catherine, Ken. Good to see you there. Enjoy the experience. We'll see you in the next half hour.
The NCAA says it's willing to bring its events back to North Carolina now that HB 2 is repealed. However, it appears the state is on notice. The NCAA released a statement today that says it's not impressed with the new law that repealed HB 2, but it is enough for now. The statement reads in part, if we find that our expectations of a discrimination-free environment are not met, we will not hesitate to take necessary action at any time. The NCAA is currently in the process of selecting sites for 5 years worth of events. They should announce those next week.
A mistake at a local DMV office could cost nearly 24,000 people their personal information.
Forms with names, addresses, maybe even social security numbers were not shredded but just thrown in the trash. WRAL's Sarah Kruger is live now with where this happened at the DMV on Spring Forest Road in Raleigh. Sarah, how do people know if they're affected?
Deborah, if you came to this DMV anytime between September 1st of 2016 and March 7th of this year, unfortunately, it is your personal information that may be at risk. And if you fall into that category, you can expect to get a letter from the state sometime this week. Walking into this DMV on Spring Forest Road in North Raleigh, some customers are now hesitant.
Doesn't feel very good or very safe if they're not shredding documents and just throwing them away where people can access that. That's not too good.
Now serving C.
DMV officials say that's not happening here anymore, but it was between the months of around September through March, which worries customer Ted Brown.
And when you come to a DMV office like this, do you expect that they will take care of your personal information?
Absolutely. I mean, they're a state agency. You would think that they'd protect your information so that it's not compromised or stolen.
Personal information.
In a news conference Tuesday, officials announced the mistake, that the shredder here was broken, so a little more than 23,000 forms were sitting in boxes. The cleaning staff mistakenly trashed them without any shredding. Those forms had names, addresses, and in a few hundred cases, possibly even social security numbers.
What we want to do is make sure that the public knows that we're their partner in this, and that if for some reason they do have an issue, we're here.
David Howard, the deputy secretary for the state DOT, says they have no indication anyone's information was in fact compromised, but they're letting the public know just to be safe. And the manager here will face some kind of disciplinary action. We're not sure exactly what at this point. Meanwhile, all of the staff here is getting retrained on proper protocol for handling those important documents. And in case you're wondering, this is the same DMV where I was last week, where a woman said she was given a driver's license without ever taking a driving test. DMV officials say that employee resigned the day after our story aired.
Sarah Kruger live in Raleigh. Thank you, Sarah. So what should you do if you're one of those customers whose information is potentially out there?
5 on your side's Monica La Liberty is here with an answer. Monica.
Yes, and whether records not being shredded, as what happened at the DMV, or one of the mega data breaches we regularly hear about, the advice is the same. I know you've heard it before, but the key is you've got to follow it.
First, change your username and passwords immediately when you're a breach victim, and even regularly when you're not. A strong password is at least 10 characters and includes upper and lowercase as well as a number and a symbol. Monitor your accounts online. Don't wait for statements to find a problem. Also, sign up to get email or text alerts about transactions, especially potentially fraudulent ones. And check your credit report at annualcreditreport.com. We get 3 free ones a year, one from each of the big credit bureaus. So get one every 4 months.
And consider a credit freeze, especially when your social security number is compromised, as happened with the DMV files. Identity thieves use social security numbers to open new credit, and a freeze pretty much slams the door on that. It is free for identity theft victims and can be temporarily lifted when you actually need to get credit.
There are a lot of ID theft protection services out there. Are they worth it?
You know, they can cost anywhere, say, from $100 to upwards of $300. I know in the past, Consumer Report says don't waste your money, that really what they do, you can do yourself for little or no expense.
Just be vigilant.
Monica, thank you.
You bet.
Healthcare debate may find new life on Capitol Hill coming up. The compromise from the White House designed to get Republicans back on board. Plus, that collapsed section of I-85 could be open again by this summer. How Georgia officials are cutting months off the original timeline. And today at 5:30, Gilbert Bays takes us to Lumberton, where hundreds of people are still living in hotels 6 months after Hurricane Matthew took their homes. Greg?
All right, Deb, isn't that pretty behind me there? Look at the WRAL gardens. Everything is nice and tranquil and docile right now. But as we head toward late tomorrow and tomorrow night, that probably will not be the case. We'll talk about our next severe weather threat coming up in just a minute.
Focused on people and community for 60 years, we promise a relentless pursuit of excellence. This is WRAL News.
New information into the newsroom tonight about 2 drug-related deaths in Cary shines a spotlight on the growing heroin problem here in Wake County. It's hard to say anymore that it's someone else's problem. Thank you for joining us. I'm Deborah Morgan.
And I'm Cullen Browder. David Crabtree is on assignment. Heroin is our problem now, and it's impacting people all across the state, no matter their age, their income, their religion. Look at some of these numbers. 10,000 people called the state's Drug and Alcohol Information Hotline. 999 of them said they needed help because of heroin. Those are just the people who admit to using. It doesn't include all the people who call local centers, hotlines, and 911.
And even if you don't know how to get heroin, it can touch your life. A friend or family member may be using, or you might be on the road when something like this happens. A driver in High Point had another adult and 2 children in her Jeep when she hit a tractor trailer from behind. Emergency crews treated both adults at the scene for heroin overdoses. Here at home, WRAL's Amanda Lamb joins us live with ways heroin is causing problems in Wake County. Amanda?
Deborah, Cary police won't confirm that those 2 deaths over the weekend were caused by heroin yet, but we do know they're investigating 3 deaths back in November. They returned these search warrants today, and it shows just how hard they're working to try to figure out where this heroin is coming from. We also learned from the Wake County Sheriff today that they are having a big problem with people who are addicted to heroin coming into the jail, and they have to treat that. It's affecting the community on so many levels. When people call this hotline, they meet someone who understands addiction.
Every time I scored, I had the grandest hopes that it would be one of the best highs I'd ever had. It never was.
Hotline counselor Keith Kimbrough used heroin for 6 years after decades of using prescription painkillers.
My connection didn't come through, and I can't get any pain pills, but I know where to get some heroin. And it's cheaper.
The Alcohol Drug Council of North Carolina has seen a dramatic increase in the past year in calls about heroin.
We saw an increase of 50% of callers identifying heroin as something they're using.
We do feel like there's an increase in overdoses that we were responding to in recent times.
Wake County EMS workers are responding to more heroin overdoses. Certainly
there's been a lot more attention lately. It feels like there are more of those. It feels that way to us as well.
Heroin use and overdoses coming into the jail were 4 times higher than it was in 2010.
Wake County Sheriff Donnie Harrison says many inmates come into the jail addicted to heroin.
It is a burden. It's a burden on the taxpayers because when they come in the condition that they're in, we have to look after them.
Kimbrough, 20 years off heroin, wants to help others find recovery.
You know, they asked me, they go, what did you do? And I said, I reached a point where I had enough, so I did whatever was necessary to stay clean and sober.
Now, one of the biggest concerns that investigators have is what they call bad heroin, heroin that's laced with other stronger drugs, and they believe that may be what's responsible for some of these recent deaths. Deborah.
Amanda Lamb, live in Wake County. Thanks, Amanda.
Police are investigating a shooting that injured 2 people outside of a Durham convenience store earlier this afternoon. Police say a small group had gathered at the corner of South Roxborough Street and West Cornwallis Road. At some point, authorities say shots were fired. Both people injured are expected to survive. North Carolina has received a $4.5 million FEMA grant to help fund the long-term recovery from Hurricane Matthew. Money will pay for caseworkers who will work with some of the hardest hit survivors over the next 2 years. Well, Fayetteville is hosting a special guest tonight. Lester Holt will anchor the NBC Nightly News from Hay Street.
It's part of a listening tour leading up to the inauguration on Friday. WRAL's Gilbert Bays did some listening himself today. He joins us now live with what he heard. Gilbert?
Well, Deborah and Colin, we're here at the Airborne Special Operations Museum. You see that Lester Holt's getting ready for the evening news. He was in California, in Michigan last night, in Fayetteville today, basically focusing on national security and health care. We thought we'd go around and ask folks what they expect from a Trump administration during the next 4 years. They talk a lot about politics here at the Haymont Barbershop. 2 days before we have a new president, some of the talk is about security for our community and nation.
The military and the police are the people that protect us, and I think as a general rule, a lot of people now don't feel like that we're headed in the right direction in either case.
Across town at Trimmers, barber William McCoy watches President Obama's last press conference and wonders about jobs in the coming years.
Well, they can't just sit back and wait on Trump. You got to get out here and grind every day. If you got a family, you got to get up and teach them that you got to get up and grind every day.
Several people stopped by to watch the crew set up for tonight's NBC News broadcast. Fred Colburn is a Vietnam veteran. He wants one thing from the new president.
If President-elect Trump does what he says he's going to do for the military, I'm all for it, brother.
I just feel that regardless of who is the elect president or who he is, there might be some possibilities of change for us, but that's more where the faith comes in.
Lester Holt says that's what he's hearing in this community. There's worry over Donald Trump's unknowns.
He has made a lot of big commitments that he's yet to, explain in detail, how to replace Obamacare, when that will be replaced. Will there be insurance for everyone?
Now, Lester told me he had very interesting conversations with the folks in this community. You will be seeing those conversations tonight at 6:30. Deborah, this tour is going to wrap up tomorrow in Washington, D.C. as soon as the crew gets finished here tonight.
Nice to have that spotlight on Fayetteville. Gilbert Bays, live in Fayetteville. Thank you. And you can watch Lester Holt and the NBC Nightly News live team from Fayetteville tonight at 6:30, right after this newscast here on WRAL.
WRAL is in Washington, D.C. for the presidential inauguration. Our own David Crabtree and photojournalist Andrew Cumby arrived this afternoon. They will be scouting out the triangle connections to the events. Look for their live report starting tomorrow at 4 o'clock right here on WRAL. And be here Friday for NBC's coverage of Donald Trump's inauguration. Coverage starts at 10 a.m. right here on WRAL.
UNC System President Margaret Spelling says House Bill 2 is impacting efforts to recruit academic talent. She says potential job candidates have ruled out moving to North Carolina because of the controversial law. In an interview today with the Associated Press, Spelling said she's unaware of any academic talent embracing a move to the state because of HB2. Spelling said the law is hurting a system that could provide economic growth. North Carolina has a voice at the National Conference of State Legislatures. State Senator Dan Blue was elected the organization's president at the group's meeting in Arizona this week. The bipartisan organization alternates its leadership annually between parties.
A fast food chain is investigating a data breach. Popeyes released information today. New at 6 will tell you which 2 locations right here in our state will be on that watch list. And then you come home to a huge hole like this in your yard. 5 on your side's Monica Liberty talks with homeowners it's happened to and why it could happen to you. Elizabeth.
I think we're getting used to these warm temperatures. Today's high 70 degrees. Let's take a look at our Wilson sky cam. It's a very quiet night. We have clear skies, but those clear skies are going to allow our temperatures to drop pretty significantly tonight. We'll talk about how chilly it will feel in the morning coming up.
Focused on people and community for 60 years, we promise a relentless pursuit of excellence. This is WRAL News.
It's going to take a lot more than $6 million to recover from the mess created by Hurricane Matthew. However, that's all the federal government is willing to give right now. Thank you for joining us. I'm David Crabtree.
And I'm Deborah Morgan. The move leaves Governor Roy Cooper, in his own words, shocked and deeply disappointed. And here's why. Last month, Governor Cooper asked the federal government for $930 million to fund ongoing recovery efforts. The government agreed to $6.1 million for now, and it can be only used for housing.
That means no money for farmers who lost crops or equipment. No money to fix damaged roads and broken sewer systems. Nothing for hundreds of small businesses or for health care. Governor Cooper invited the president to come see the need for himself. WRAL's Catherine Brown did just that, heading into a flood-ravaged community in Wayne County to talk about the next steps. Catherine?
Well, David and Deborah, this is the letter that Governor Cooper sent to President Trump and other members of Congress today, blasting the decision to withhold hundreds of millions of dollars in federal aid from those who need it most. But we spoke with some North Carolina leaders today who say it's not quite as bad as the governor is making it seem.
The water came, the rain came.
7 months after Hurricane Matthew, Earl Nails still feels like he's underwater.
A lot of people still suffer. I haven't got paid for mine.
The Vietnam veteran is still waiting on the bulk of the federal funds he's been promised to help rebuild his life. News that Congress denied sending hundreds of millions of dollars in federal relief money here to help is not welcome.
Yeah, I hear all these billions that they're sending overseas and doing this and doing that. Say $1 billion to build a wall. Come on, man. You know how many people suffering out there in 117? It's terrible.
I am deeply disappointed that Washington isn't making North Carolina's urgent need a top priority.
Governor Cooper says he worked with North Carolina's congressional delegation to pare down the list of needs to what he calls a conservative $930 million request. But Congressman Robert Pittenger says he never heard from the governor about that request. He and other lawmakers point to $200 million already given to the state that hasn't been spent yet, and say they're working to secure millions more behind the scenes. To Earl Nails, though, what matters most is getting the help he needs.
They give us red tape, so much red tape, to come and send you money for the hotel and this and that. Come on, man. It's tired of fighting.
Everyone is tired of fighting here. We did speak with some who have gotten federal aid and have been able to rebuild. They are very appreciative of that money. Senator Tom Tillis, among others, helped secure a $330 million federal aid package at the end of last year. And his office tells me the federal government has also given our state $750 million in aid so far that did not require congressional approval. A lot of numbers here, a lot to digest. Back to you.
No question. Catherine Brown live in Goldsboro. Catherine, thank you.
Traffic on I-440 is flowing again today under the Melbourne Road Bridge. The DOT says engineers have evaluated information from an inspection to determine the best course of action. They will decide whether the bridge can open with weight restrictions or if it should remain closed until full repairs are made. Yesterday, traffic was backed up for hours after someone driving a tractor trailer hit the bridge. The extent of repairs needed will determine what, if any, impact this will have on the traffic flow below. People who live nearby want to see swift improvements.
For people, especially in the morning, going to work that are jumping onto 440 eastbound, because they can't come across. They definitely have it a little bit more difficult than us.
This bridge is expected to be replaced as part of the I-440 widening project set to begin in 2018.
We're getting a clearer picture now of how state Senate leaders want to spend your tax dollars.
Supporters talk about teacher pay raises and tax cuts. Critics point to budget details that leave others behind. WRAL's Colin Browder joins us now live from the state legislative building with the battle over priorities. Colin?
Well, Deborah and David, when you talk about the Senate priorities, they keep talking about increased education spending, those tax cuts, and then building the savings reserve to $1.8 billion. But then you take a closer look at the 500-page budget document and you realize that a lot of teachers and retirees are not happy. What happens in this room directly impacts what happens in North Carolina classrooms. Senate leaders want to spend millions more on public education, but still not enough for many advocates.
Our students deserve better than this.
Red-clad teachers work to take the shine off classroom spending and propose pay raises. What signal does this budget send to veteran teachers?
We want you gone. We don't need you.
The Senate plan would bump average teacher pay by 9.5% over 2 years, but veteran teachers with 25 or more years get zero.
What this budget means to me is that they don't want us here, or if they want us here, they don't value our seniority and our skills and our leadership.
There's not enough for the top teachers.
Senator Jerry Tillman says with goals set to boost teachers earlier in their careers, something had to give. Same with cost of living increases for state retirees.
Do we have to continue to decide if we're going to buy our medicines, if we're going to buy our groceries, and if we're going to pay our rent?
Senate Republicans took heat for choosing to shore up the pension with no payout increases.
The money only went so far, and I'd rather have the system solvent.
There's never enough money. If you fund everything that everybody wants, we'd probably have about a $50 billion budget instead of about a $23 billion budget. But so it's not easy.
Now, while overall education spending in this budget does increase, there are still some cuts. For instance, there's a 25% operational cut to the Department of Public Instruction and a 30% cut to the law school at UNC Chapel Hill. The Senate budget goes to the Senate floor tomorrow. Deborah and Dave.
Colin Browder live on Jones Street. Thank you, Colin.
The owner of Hillsborough's Colonial Inn has more time to sell the property. The town began the legal process last summer to acquire the historic site. After mediation, the town has dropped that request. Now owner Francis Henry gets a chance to sell the property if the town can step in if it finds the buyer unsuitable. And investigators say the carbon monoxide poisoning of a Wendell family is accidental. 2 adults and 3 children were treated for the poisoning early this morning. Came from a charcoal grill. Everyone is expected to be okay. Investigators did not say whether the home had a carbon monoxide detector.
Another leader from Facebook is set to visit Fort Bragg. Sheryl Sandberg, the company's chief operating officer, will be on post tomorrow afternoon. She plans to talk about resilience and the need for gender equality, both in the military and in general society. After her remarks, she will take questions from the crowd. Earlier this year, Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg spent time on post.
A call to declare opioid use an emergency in North Carolina, and it's not coming from the medical community. Who is sounding the alarm? Next at 6. And to find out why the state's NAACP is becoming involved in a decision of the UNC System's Board of Governors, one they're about to make.
David and Deborah ahead for us tonight. The White House on defense as we learn inside details of the president's firing of FBI Director Comey. and why it's left some senior White House staffers angry. Also amid suspicions it was aimed at thwarting the Russia investigation, will a special prosecutor take over? And a warning over something that sends 50 kids an hour to the ER. On NBC Nightly News right after WRAL News at 6.
All right, thanks, Lester. It's very, very warm now, but halt everything. A dramatic turn to cooler temperatures appears to be on the doorstep for tomorrow night and Friday. We'll talk about that coming up.